Trying new lenses is a great way to build your skill set as a filmmaker. One of you guys commented on my last V-raptor video that you wanted to see me review some RF lenses, so I rented a couple. This video is not sponsored by lens rentals, but I would recommend them. So I own the 24-70 2.8, but I rented the 85 1.2, the DS version, the 70-200 2.8, and the 15-35 2.8. Here's a short commercial I made for a CrossFit gym using the V-raptor with these lenses. So the 85 is massive. It's something I noticed right away, is just how bulky it is. But the image quality is awesome. The DS version means defocus smoothing, and it's supposed to have nicer bokeh than the non-DS version. And the 85 is the only lens here that doesn't have image stabilization built into the lens. I thought it was going to be a deal breaker because the V-raptor doesn't have image stabilization built in either, which is a little difficult for me to get used to because the Alpha series cameras are so good with their image stabilization that you almost don't need a gimbal. So I thought handheld using a lens without stabilization on a camera without stabilization was going to be really tough, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. 24 FPS is pretty shaky, but slow-mo is totally fine. And the look of the lens is beautiful and pretty unique. And of course you have the extra low light capability is nice as well. The 70-200 was a pleasant surprise for me because it has not just image stabilization in the lens, it actually has 3 modes of image stabilization. So it has least, more, and most. And when you have it on that cranked up setting, even at 200 handheld, it's usable even in normal speed and it looks fine. The 15-35 is a really good gimbal lens because it's light. The autofocus is pretty reliable on the gimbal. The distortion is manageable, and on the VistaVision sensor, you don't even really need to go past 18 to get a super wide shot. So I almost forgot to add a segment about the 24-70 because this is the only lens I own for the V-raptor. And there's a reason why this is everyone's go-to first lens. It's a no-brainer purchase. I love this lens. The manual focus is smooth and easy to use, and you can really get a strong variety of looks with this one lens. Also, I should mention a small detail I really like about all of these lenses is that they are all the same thread size for filters, which means I just need one size ND filter. I tested the autofocus on pretty much all the lenses and they were all about the same. The thing with the RED's autofocus is it's like not really to be counted on. You kind of have to rely on it when you're using the gimbal, if you're using the gimbal as a solo operator. And in those situations, it works as good as you need it to because otherwise using manual on a gimbal is really difficult. I'm using the autofocus right now in this video and I'm sure that most of it is in focus. But if I go over here, I'm out of focus because it's just about it being in the center. So since I don't rely on autofocus on this camera, how's the manual focus ring on these lenses? I haven't had a problem. I personally like how sensitive it is. I don't want to have to turn the ring very far to catch focus. So one of the final points I need to talk about is the vignetting. This is something that happens on all lenses on the V-raptor because of the size of the sensor. Apparently it's supposed to be less noticeable on cinema lenses, which I tested here on a 15 prime versus the 15-35, and it looked pretty much the same. It's something that I noticed right away when I first got the camera, and I thought it would bother me, but it hasn't caused me any problems, honestly. So for my final thoughts and would I buy any of these lenses, I think my next lens that I will purchase is the 70-200 just because the range that you can get with it and the flexibility that you have. And honestly, the 85 caught me by surprise. Like when I realized it didn't have image stabilization, I thought I wasn't going to be able to use it at all, but it was more useful than I thought it would be and the look is super cinematic. So coming from a Sony user, I would say the RF lenses are pretty similar to the GM lenses from Sony. Their build quality, the manual focus ring, having the aperture ring on the lens, the image stabilization. I think having a lot of these features is the difference between an $800 lens and a $2,500 lens. Canon's coming out with more of these RF lenses and I'm excited to see what comes next.